It is a great honor for me to present to you Dr. Benjamin S. Carson, Sr., who will deliver the commencement address.
Thank you very much, and I am indeed delighted to now be a part of the Mount St. Mary's family. And I want to extend my congratulations to all the graduates and their families on this momentous occasion. When you can embark upon some of the great dreams that you've had over the years, I think dreams are an essential part of success. You know, I remember as a youngster having a dream of becoming a physician. There was something about medicine that always attracted me. When I was a kid, if there was a story on the news, radio, television about medicine, I was right there like a magnet. I even liked going to the doctor's office, so it tells you I was a little strange right there. And going to the hospital was like the best thing in the world, because we were on medical assistance, and we'd have to wait for hours before one of the interns or residents could see us. Most people complain about that. I was in my glory. I'd sit out there listening to the PA system, Dr. Jones, to the emergency room, Dr. Johnson. They sounded so important. And I'd be thinking one day they'll be saying, Dr. Carson, Dr. Carson. But of course now we have beepers, so I still don't get to hear it. But sometimes, you know, it is those dreams and those things that carry you through. And yeah, were there a lot of obstacles along the way? Of course there were. You know, my parents got divorced early on, dire poverty, horrible temper, horrible grades, low self-esteem. You name it, it was there. But you know, those dreams got me through, and by the time I was age 33, I was director of pediatric neurosurgery at the #1 hospital in the nation. And what does that say? What does that tell you about the nation in which we live? You know, a lot of people try to trash our nation and tell about all the horrible things about it, but, you know, I always say, why don't you go live somewhere else? You know, the fact of the matter is, this is a spectacular place. And I was able to enjoy a spectacular rise in my career. All kinds of things started coming my way. Difficult tumor cases, craniofacial cases, conjoined twins, intrauterine surgery, epilepsy. And, you know, I found myself, you know, moving up the ladder very, very, very rapidly. But interestingly enough, I was in Germany last summer as a visiting professor at one of the German universities. And after my talk, several of the doctors came up to me and they said, you know, it seems like your country is moving toward our system, you know, of a more socialized type of medicine. And I guess that means that we should be gloating because you, the great America, are moving to our system. And they said, but you know what? We're not happy about it because you guys are the innovators. And if you become like us, who's going to be the innovators? And you know, that told me something. That tells me that, you know, the rest of the world really does realize that there is something different about this nation in which you live. And it's something that we should cherish. You want to think about something that's inspiring. You think about the people who fought to liberate this country. You know, George Washington, leading a bunch of ragtag militiamen, didn't even have the same uniform, had bandages on their feet because they didn't have boots, trampling through the snow, and able to defeat the most powerful empire on earth at that time. You know, that's the heritage from which this country springs. And there were visionary leaders. Even though they had significant differences of opinion, they were united in one thing, and that was the great American experiment, in which you would have a nation that was for, of, and by the people. A nation where the power lay with the people and not with the government. This was their vision for the nation. And they created an environment that encouraged entrepreneurship and hard work and dedication and making things. And this country developed the most powerful economic engine the world has ever known. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville, France, came here with his delegation. They wanted to study the American government. Why were they so fascinated? Because this nation, barely 50 years old, was already competing with all the powers of Europe in industry. We already had a AAA credit rating. How could a fledgling nation do all of that? They wondered about that. But while they were studying the government, they also wanted to study our educational system. And they were flabbergasted to discover that anybody in this nation who had finished the second grade was literate. And if you had finished the 5th or 6th grade, you were beyond belief. You know, in Europe, only the aristocracy were exposed to education. But in this nation, de Tocqueville went out to the frontiers. He found mountain men. They were literate. They understood government. They understood the branches of government. They knew how to calculate. They knew what hectares and acres were. They could do all those calculations in their heads. They figured out how to build bridges. It was unbelievable. But you know, the other thing that was so unique about this nation is that people cared about each other. You know, if somebody's fence got trampled down, or if there was a hurricane and somebody's barn blew down, guess where everybody was the next day? Right there, helping them build it up again. People looked after each other's children. This became the most generous and most philanthropic nation the world has ever known. That's the heritage that you have. So when people start trashing our nation, you should remind them of that. You should remind them of World War II, when all the nations of the world were falling like dominoes, one by one, about to come under the subjugation of tyrannical leaders. Nothing to stop it, except for one thing. This nation, the United States of America, a nation with the ability to send its young men from the cities, the suburbs, the country, to fight a war on 2 different fronts of the world. A nation with the ability to send its young women into the factories to build more airplanes, tanks, and mortars than anybody could imagine. A nation that, with its determination and industrial might, changed the course of the world.